After watching Sunday's win, you probably thought, yeah, there's no way the Orioles play a crazier game than that this season. Then the very next night, maybe they did. The 3-run homer in the ninth from Cedric Mullins to give the O's the lead. They somehow hold on in the bottom half, and they beat the Astros on Monday. And I'm going to try to find the words to explain how they did it. Coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Orioles fans, today is Tuesday, September 19th, 2023, and welcome back into the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we are going to recap another insane Orioles victory as they take down the Astros 8-7 on Monday night. I'll get you the 5 things you need to know from that one, including an incredibly clutch 3-run homer from Cedric Mullins in the 9th inning, an amazing day, a 5-hit day from Ryan O'Hearn, and another good start from John Means. Then I'll dive a little deeper into the Means start, kind of go not batter by batter, but break it down further to see, hey, how much can he contribute? Can he be in a postseason rotation for the O's? Because that was a big test against Houston on Monday night. And finally, the bullpen wasn't great despite the Orioles win. So another edition of the Bullpen Trust Power Rankings coming up at the end of the pod. But that is all coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast, which is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. So let's start it here with just a wild Orioles win. And I'll say Sunday's win probably a little more wild, definitely meant a little bit more to the Orioles. But man, oh man, what they did on Monday was incredible once again. Orioles 8, Astros 7, the final score from game 1 of a 3-game set at Minute Maid Park in Houston on Monday night. It's another series without the Orioles being swept, make it 88 series in a row, and the O's get the W. All right, now the Rays were off. They start their 3-game series against the Angels today after the off day Monday, but the Orioles get the big W, which extends their lead to 2.5 games in the AL East. And again, you can treat it like 3.5 because they have the tiebreaker. The Orioles get to 94-56 with 12 games remaining, and the magic number is down to 9. Between Orioles wins and Rays losses for the rest of the year has to combine to equal just 9 for the Orioles to clinch the AL East. And I'm going to get to the 5 things you need to know from the O's wild 8-7 win over the Astros on Monday. And the first thing you need to know is you cannot escape Cedric Mullins. Little man said it best. You can't escape him. For the second straight day, Mullins plays hero for the Orioles. Had the walk-off sac fly on Sunday, an even bigger swing on Monday. With the Orioles down to their final 2 outs, trailing 7-5 in the 9th inning, Ryan O'Hearn gets the rally started as he just kind of rolls a single up the middle. Austin Hayes laces a single into center field. And with 2 on and 1 out against one of the best closers in baseball in Ryan Presley, Cedric Mullins delivers a 3-run bomb to right center field for Mullins, 103 miles per hour off the bat, 425. It was a certified no-doubter. Would have been a home run in all 30 MLB ballparks. Was not a cheapie for Cedric. A 3-run shot that flips the game on its head and gives the Orioles an 8-7 lead. And just what a moment for Mullins. I mean, we talked about on Monday's episode how big that moment was for Mullins to get the sac fly Sunday to clinch the playoffs, a guy who's been around through the rebuild. He continues to come up with big hits. He's not having the season he had in 2021. We know that. But he's been huge with runners in scoring position, hitting over 330 in those spots this year. Did it again with the homer. Also had an RBI double earlier in the game in that spot that tied the game at 5 in the 7th inning as well. He just continues to swing it well when guys get to second or third base. And that is huge for an Orioles team that plays with smaller margins than other guys, to have someone in Mullins in kind of the middle to bottom part of your order that's coming through in those spots. And just what a swing it was. What a swing it was. And that is back-to-back days for the Orioles really getting big hits against, I would say, with Felix Bautista hurt. I would call Pete Fairbanks of the Rays Sunday and Ryan Pressly of the Astros Monday. I would call them, with Bautista down, the two best closers in the American League that are healthy right now. They got Fairbanks Sunday. They got Pressly on Monday. This Orioles offense does not quit. And although Mullins had the big swing, the second thing you need to know from Monday's win is that the offense was led by Ryan O'Hearn. O'Hearn's had some big days this year, and he's had bigger hits, plenty of bigger hits than he had in this game. But he hasn't had a game that was better than this. O'Hearn, a perfect 5 for 5 in the game with 4 singles and a double, 2 RBIs and a run scored, 3 hard hit balls, now up to a 309 average and an 849 OPS on the season, both leading the Orioles. And it's huge for O'Hearn, who's now basically playing every day with Ryan Mountcastle injured again. And, it still looks like Mountcastle is at least healthy enough to not go on the IL, but he's not healthy enough to be active for any of these games. I mean, the Orioles, we'll talk about it, did a lot of maneuvering at the end of that game, both Sunday and Monday, just because they didn't have Ryan Mountcastle available with the shoulder issue. And so O'Hearn, who was sitting against lefties at least, is now just playing every single day, and he is capitalizing. Had a big hit in the 5th, 2-run single with 2 outs off Justin Verlander that put the Orioles up 3-1. That was his only RBI hit, but of course he got the rally started in the 9th inning with the 1-out single off of Pressly. Had a big single in the 7th inning, had a big double earlier in the game. He was just swinging it well again. Just, you can't say enough about him. What a find. What a job by Mike Elias of going to get Ryan O'Hearn. I mean, you would have told me I was crazy in January. And I said, hey, Ryan O'Hearn's going to hit 4th in the Orioles' first playoff game in 2023. You would have said, you're crazy. That's probably going to happen when we get to October. I mean, this dude's ridiculous. Third thing you need to know from this one, John Means was solid again. Wasn't amazing, wasn't bad, but was solid against a really, really good Astros order. 5 innings of 1-run ball for Means in his second start since returning to the big league mound after 17 months away with the Tommy John surgery. 5 innings, 1 run on 4 hits with 1 strikeout and 3 walks on 86 pitches for Means. Didn't allow a home run ball in this one, which was good. Some good, some bad. We'll break that start down much further a little later in the episode. But the fourth thing you need to know from the Orioles' 8-7 win over the Astros on Monday night is that Aaron Hicks got hurt again. Hicks, who went 1 for 4 with a single, a walk, and a strikeout in this game, was hitting 6th and got the start in right field in this one. It's a third time it's happened to Aaron Hicks. He had the lower body injury first to put him on the IL. Then he had the back injury. Now, after a 1-out walk in the 9th inning against Ryan Pressly, he went to second base on a wild pitch that got away, just beating the throw into second. And it was an awkward slide where kind of his front ankle, his right ankle popped up on the base and the left ankle popped up there, and he was kind of holding both of them. He was walking around gingerly. He stayed in the game initially, but then when it got to the bottom of the 9th inning with the Orioles leading 8-7, Hicks stayed in the dugout. Brian Ebel, the Orioles head athletic trainer, was checking on him. Heston Kjerstad had to go out there into left field to replace Hicks defensively, and it caused a wild whirlwind for the Orioles because really with the guys you had on the bench, the fact that you had already taken Jorge Mateo out of the game, the fact that Santander had already been used as a pinch hitter and then was out of the game, the only guy you had who you could put in the outfield was Heston Kjerstad, who was the starting DH. So for the second straight day, the Orioles had to burn the DH by putting Kjerstad in the outfield. And then Brandon Hyde just did some wild maneuvering. So once there were 2 outs with the runner on third in the bottom of the 9th inning, he then replaces Kjerstad. Kjerstad comes out of the game. Ryan O'Hearn goes from first base to left field. Austin Hayes goes over to right field. And James McCann, who's played 1 inning at first base this year for the O's, now has played a lot more over there in his career, and who was taking grounders at first base before the game, presumably because Mountcastle's still out. McCann entered defensively at first base for the final out of Monday's game. Luckily, him and O'Hearn didn't have to do anything after the switches. And people were saying, well, why would Kjerstad go out there first and then come back in? Well, I think it has to do with Kjerstad is probably the better defensive outfielder than Ryan O'Hearn is, But once the Astros got the runner to third, and it looked like there was a chance they were going to tie this game and it was going to go to extras, the Orioles, after burning the DH, had the pitcher spot in the lineup somewhere. And because, the Astros had the tying run 90 feet away, they were a little worried that this game might go to extras and the pitcher spot might come up. So because of that, and Hyde knew he was making a pitching change, was bringing in Cano, he essentially tried to make a double switch where he could move where the pitcher was hitting, because he only would have had James McCann left on the bench, and you don't really want to use him as a pinch hitter because then you burn your backup catcher just in case. And so you were kind of without a pinch hitter, and that's why he wanted to move that pitcher spot around. So that was most likely why they did all the weird stuff right there. In the bottom of the ninth inning, they actually moved the pitcher spot to Heston Kjerstad's spot, which was the final out of the top of the ninth. So that pitcher spot wouldn't have come up until at least the 11th, maybe the 12th if they got there. Yeah, it was weird stuff, but it's tough for Aaron Hicks, who I know and I have heard has been such a big part of this Orioles team, especially in the clubhouse. The young guys love him. Brandon Hyde loves him, and he's been a huge positive influence on this team. And he can still do that if he is injured. He can still be in the clubhouse throughout the postseason, bring that veteran leadership, which is great. But the O's would also miss his bat. I mean, he's been pretty productive defensively and offensively. It would be a tough loss if he's out again. If he is, Ryan McKenna would be the easy call up to be like, essentially the fourth outfielder, fifth outfielder, defensive replacement, pinch runner guy. But hopefully it's not too serious. Looked like the ankle for Hicks, but hopefully he is okay. And then the fifth and final thing you need to know from the Orioles' wild 8-7 win over the Astros on Monday night is that, well, the reason they almost lost this game is because the bullpen was very questionable in this one. After John Means gave the 5 strong innings, he, handed it over. The Orioles a 3-1 lead into the 6th. There was no way Means was coming back out there for a 6th inning. He was already into the order for the 3rd time. He'd already thrown 86 pitches. 86 was the most he threw in any of the rehab starts in AAA. It was only 75 pitches in his first start back in the big leagues. He wasn't going any further. It was good to get him through 5. Shintaro Fujinami came in. That was tough to watch. He retired the first batter and didn't get anyone else out. Gave up 3 hits, wasn't good, was crazy wild, multiple wild pitches. Jacob Webb comes in, gives up a hit and a walk, an earned run. He wasn't looking great. Then the O's tie the game with the big 7th inning, and they tied at 5 after the 4-run 6th gives the Astros a 5-3 lead. Danny Coulomb comes out there. He's been great lately. Gives up a solo homer to Jose Abreu, makes it 6-5. Mike Baumann comes out there, gives up a solo homer to Maldonado in the 8th, makes it 7-5, and it just wasn't great stuff from the bullpen until the 9th inning when they finally just put things together and got it done. And it wasn't Yennier Cano, despite it being a safe situation, despite him being rested. Brandon Hyde, and what I thought was the right move, went to Cionel Perez because, of course, as it always seems to happen, the middle pocket with the tough lefties of the Astros order was due up into the bottom of the 9th. Yordan Alvarez, Jose Abreu, and Kyle Tucker. And that is the spot where you want Cionel Perez in the game. He was fully rested, ready to go, and you put him in there. And honestly, Perez should have got a 1-2-3 inning and the save. But for some reason, when Alvarez chopped the first pitch right to Ramon Arias playing in at 3rd, on what should have been an easy throw, he spikes it in the dirt for a 2-base error, and all of a sudden, the runner is at 2nd. Then he gets the fly out, and then Perez honestly gets lucky. Like, they put in the pinch runner, Jake Myers, one of the fastest runners in baseball. He goes to 3rd on the fly out with 1 out. The chopper from Kyle Tucker gets hit to 2nd base. Adam Frazier has 0 arm strength, even with the infield played in. If you're running the contact play right there, Myers scores easily. Frazier probably just tosses it to 1st for the 2nd out, and the game's tied. For some reason, they don't send him home. Hyde makes the million changes, including Cano, and Cano strikes out McCormick on 3 nasty pitches, including an incredible changeup to get a swing and miss strike 3 to strand the tying run at 3rd, get the save, get the win. Yeah, the bullpen was ugly, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but they got the 3 outs when it mattered, despite the error, despite Ramon Arias trying to kill me in that 9th inning. They get the win. What another just unbelievable Orioles win it was on Monday night. But with all the craziness late in that game, it's probably going to get lost that John Means pitched pretty well in his 2nd start back from Tommy John surgery. So coming up next, we'll talk about the highs and the lows from start number 2 from the Orioles left-handed, at least former and hopefully future as well, ace on the mound. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Sales. Are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and the seller at every single stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that translates comprehensive, high quality buyer data into real time insights. We call this deep sales. And these deeper insights empower sales reps and teams to adopt the habits of top performers, which leads to better outcomes. We've built the first deep sales platform with the next generation of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon to get started. So the Orioles take down the Astros in a wild one on Monday night, winning it 8-7. Cedric Mullins with the game-winning 3-run homer. And through all the craziness, it might be forgotten that John Means made his second start, returning from Tommy John surgery, in Monday night's game. And he was pretty good in this one. I talked about it briefly when going through the recap of the game, but 5 innings, 1 run on 4 hits, 1 strikeout, 3 walks, 86 pitches for Means. The Astros got 8 hard hit balls against him. So 2 starts, 5 innings each, 3 runs in the one run in the other. And I tweeted this out before the game. I said, this is not a great matchup for John Means here. Like, this was a very tough test for him. You have one of the best lineups in baseball in the Astros. You have a good amount of right-handed power hitters, and the lefties in the lineup, the good lefties, Alvarez and Tucker, both hit lefties very well too. Like, it doesn't matter that you have a lefty out there against those two guys. Means is a fly ball pitcher, and when you combine that with that tiny ballpark, especially down the left field line, it's a really tough matchup for that kind of pitcher, combined with it's his second start back from Tommy John. That is a rough combination. But to give up just the 1 run in the 5 innings was really, really good, I think, for John Means. So let's start with the good. First of all, got the pitch count back up. Means threw only 75 pitches in those 5 innings he threw against the Cardinals last week. He was up to 86 pitches in this one. Now, as I mentioned, there was no way he was coming back out there for the 6th inning. But 86 pitches was the most he threw in any of his AAA rehab starts. And so to match that in this one, that was a good sign for Means. Also, just to get through the 5 innings. He labored a little bit in a couple of those earlier innings, gave up the run in the first, but was able to get out of the jam. In the 3rd inning, he got help from Cedric Mullins on the huge double play on the third of the plate to avoid the Astros scoring another run in the 3rd. And to get through the 5, I think that was really good for Means. The 1 run obviously is great. Again, he got some help from his defense, but he limited the damage. Yeah, Altuve was about a foot away from a homer in the 1st inning. And yeah, there were a couple of hard hit balls, and Austin Hayes made a really nice play out there in left field to make a catch. And I think the last good thing is he finished the game healthy, right? I mean, that's a huge thing to finish this out for John Means. Like, he came out of the game, looked good, looked healthy, looked ready to make another start. Now, that was the good. Obviously, 1 run in 5 innings against the Astros, you're going to take that anytime, no matter how it happens. But there was some bad. Number 1 was 3 walks. John Means, throughout his career, has not really walked guys. He's been a big-time strike thrower. That's never been an issue for him. Did not walk anyone in the 5 innings against the Cardinals last week. 3 walks in this one is a little bit concerning. Now, we get he's trying to nibble against a really, really good Astros lineup. But in 5 innings, you do not want to see John Means walking 3 batters. Once again, it was only 1 strikeout for the 2nd straight start. He struck out 1 with no walks last week, 1 strikeout with 3 walks this week. You can get by sometimes with low strikeout numbers. You don't need the big strikeouts. But as you get deeper in the season and into the postseason, especially, we're getting there, strikeouts are the name of the game. The best way to set down a lineup is not even let them make contact. Send them back to the dugout immediately. John Means has never been a huge strikeout pitcher, but generally he's getting more than 1 strikeout per start. That's been a little concerning. And the big reason for the low strikeout numbers is he's not missing bats right now. He's not getting a lot of swings and misses. He had only 4 whiffs on 40 swings in this start. That is not good at all. All right, he had 2 on 20 swings against the changeup. Changeup was even with the fastball, 29 changeups, 29 fastballs. He threw more breaking balls in this start, 17 sliders and 11 curveballs as well. And the velocity of the fastball was, solid, right where we'd seen it, 91 to 93 for John Means. But to only get 4 swings and misses, I know it's a good Astros lineup, but you have to miss bats, especially in October. You have to miss bats. And he gave up 8 hard hit balls in 5 innings. He was kind of lucky to give up only the 1 run when you look at that line. And with the hard contact that he gave up, combined with the low whiffs, that worries me for a postseason start. Now, if you asked me after seeing now 2 starts of John Means to power rank where I would put the Orioles starters in terms of how much I'd trust them in a postseason start, I'm still putting Kyle Bradish number 1, very closely followed by a number 2, if not a 1B in Grayson Rodriguez. Dean Kramer would be number 3. And I would still slightly put Kyle Gibson at number 4 ahead of John Means at number 5. Honestly, I give a slight edge at number 6 to Cole Irvin, even though he's in AAA, and then Jack Flaherty at number 7. That's how I would rank trust the Orioles 7 starting pitching options right now to get a postseason start. So I'd say Means at number 5, very close to number 4. Generally, you need 4 starters in the postseason, so he's very close to being there, I think. And it was a good test that he mostly passed against one of the best offenses the O's could see in the postseason. 1 run in 5 innings, that's going to help you in the playoffs. But the peripherals are concerning, and that could come back to bite you in a playoff game. I feel like I need more data from John Means in another start, and we should see him throw. Most likely, it'll probably be Sunday in Cleveland would be his next start, which would be a good kind of reset. That is a bad Guardians order. Maybe we get more data off Means in that one. But again, I think another good step forward for John Means coming back from Tommy John surgery. But John Means was the good pitching on Monday night for the Orioles. The bad pitching was pretty much everyone that came out of the bullpen from innings 6 through 8. And because of that, we'll bring back the bullpen trust rankings in this one. Who do I trust? Who do I maybe trust? And who do I not trust in the Orioles' current 8-man bullpen? We'll get to that to finish off the pod coming up next. But first, this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast is also brought to you by Jase Medical. Now, what is Jase Medical? Jase Medical, it's pretty simple. You go online, you fill out a form, and then you get prescription life-saving medication sent right to your door. They've got this product. It is called a Jase Case. It keeps you prepared and gives you peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. So they tell you don't get caught unprepared. You can save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASEmedical.com, promo code LOCKEDON. So the Orioles got a crazy win, 8-7 over the Astros on Monday, but they are not done. They will now go for the series win tonight in Tuesday night's game 2 of a 3-game set. It is another 8:10 p.m. Eastern time start in this one in game 2. Kyle Gibson will take the hill for the Orioles against the Astros in this one. Gibson, a good start his last time out against St. Louis, 6 2/3 innings, just 1 run on 3 hits with 4 strikeouts and 3 walks for Kyle Gibson in that one. Now, Gibson did not face the Houston Astros when they came to Baltimore, so he'll pitch against them for the first time this season, but he knows them well, having pitched for Texas the last couple of years and was in the World Series with the Phillies last year when they took on the Astros. Now, he'll go up against the rookie Hunter Brown, who's had a really interesting season. The hard-throwing rookie right-hander has got some devastating breaking balls. 25-year-old in 28 starts this year, has a 4.61 ERA. It's been a very up-and-down season for Brown. He's always going to strike guys out, but otherwise he's either going to give up a lot of runs or basically no runs. There is no in-between for Hunter Brown. Take this. Here's his last 2 starts. Last start against Oakland, 5 scoreless, hitless innings with 7 strikeouts. Start before that against the Padres, 4 1/3, 6 runs on 6 hits. That is the variation of Hunter Brown. Hopefully the Orioles can get to him tonight in game 2. And you can listen to every single pitch of the Orioles' hometown radio broadcast of tonight's game between the Orioles and the Astros with the SXM app through SiriusXM. Just download the app and search Orioles. But the O's, they'll have to go to the bullpen at some point Tuesday night. But the hope is that with Kyle Gibson out there, after it was back-to-back days of using a lot of relievers, that he can give you 6 or 7 innings and give the pen a little bit of a rest on Tuesday night. And so let's take a closer look at that bullpen to finish off the pod, because as I just talked about, it was kind of a rough day for the bullpen, right? Like Perez and Cano did really well to close things out in the 9th. But before that, wasn't really loving what I was seeing from the Orioles. Let's just say that. Fuji was super wild. Webb wasn't as good. Coulomb gave up a homer. Baumann gave up a homer. Not the best stuff from the Orioles. So breaking it out once again this season, the bullpen trust power rankings for the Orioles. They've got 8 relievers in the pen. I've got 3 categories I put them into. Trust. The trust category means when they come out there, I am expecting the O's to leave that inning with the lead still intact. Maybe trust means sometimes I expect that, sometimes I don't. I more so expect it to be in and out. Don't trust is when they're in there, I'm not really expecting anything great to happen. So let's start with the trust category. Number 1 in there is Yennier Cano, who came in, got the 3-pitch strikeout of Jase McCormick on Monday night to seal the win and get the save. He has allowed 0 earned runs in 17 of his last 19 appearances. One of the appearances he allowed runs in was a solo homer when the O's had a 4-run lead in Arizona. The other one was the 3 runs he allowed in the 9th inning last Saturday against Boston. However, he did close it down to get that crazy 13-12 win. But as we talked about, those games in Fenway were so crazy. Doesn't even bother me that he gave up 3 runs in that one. He is the Orioles closer right now. He is on my trust list. Danny Coulomb, also on the trust list. Now, I know he gave up the homer to Jose Abreu in the 7th inning Monday that gave the Astros the lead. But that homer, which was only a solo homer, ended a streak of 13 consecutive appearances without allowing an earned run for Danny Coulomb. He was awesome. I mean, awesome. In the 6th and 7th innings in Sunday's win, he's been great lately. He's been great all season. Yeah, that home run was unfortunate. It was hit by a righty who's really heating up in September. Jose Abreu, now 5 homers in September. It is what it is. Coulomb's been great, and I trust him. And the last guy in the trust category is CNL Perez. Who would have thought, back in May and June that CNL Perez would end up in the trust category in September? But that's where we are. I mean, the only base runner he allowed in a save situation in the 9th inning was because of an egregious Ramon Arias error on Tuesday night. Like, he should have had a 1-2-3 save against Alvarez, Abreu, and Tucker. That is not easy to do, and Perez made it look not easy because Abreu hit the ball hard, but he did his job. That is now 0 earned runs in Perez's last 22 appearances. Let me say that again. 22 consecutive appearances for CNL Perez without allowing an earned run. I trust him once again. We are into the maybe trust category. We start with Shintaro Fujinami. Man, he was so close to being in trust today. It was 7 straight scoreless appearances coming into this one. And then Fuji, although he didn't walk a guy, gave up 3 hits, multiple wild pitches. Balls were near guys' heads, had no idea where it was going on Monday. That followed Sunday where he didn't give up a run in the top of the 9th inning, but was kind of wild again and allowed some base runners and needed a good play at home plate to keep a run off the board. He's still got great stuff. He can still miss bats, really better than anyone else in the Orioles bullpen right now. But he's still kind of a wild card, which means he is the definition of the maybe trust category. Jacob Webb, for the first time since joining the Orioles off waivers from the Angels, has fallen into the maybe trust category for me. I'm a little concerned right now. In his last 7 appearances, 6 innings, 8 hits, 5 runs, 4 Ks, 2 walks for Webb. His stuff isn't as crisp. He's giving up more hit balls, allowing more traffic on the bases, walking more guys, more base runners in total. Still in maybe trust. Still could see him get some high leverage spots and be okay with it, but losing trust a bit right now in Jacob Webb. DL Hall's in the maybe trust. What he did in the 11th inning on Sunday was awesome, but he's still not missing bats at a rate that you would think a DL Hall with a good changeup, a wipeout slider, and a 98-mile-per-hour fastball from the left side would miss bats at that rate. He had a bad outing, the one before that against the Rays before Sunday. It's still more up and down, and the O's put him in some big spots because of the stuff he has. I'm not sure he's totally ready for those spots. That's why he's in the maybe trust. And then finally in the maybe trust is Jorge Lopez. The back-to-back homers he gave up in the 8th Sunday were tough, but the outing before that was good. The couple of outings before that in total had been good. His stuff looks better than it did with the Twins and Marlins this year since coming back to the Orioles on waivers. Again, it's tough to really place him here because his role's still kind of undefined and he is not eligible for the postseason roster. So when we do all these bullpen breakdowns, he's still going to be a big part of the bullpen down the stretch, but you can't even consider him for the postseason because he wasn't in the organization by September 1st, so he's not eligible. So he kind of doesn't factor in there. He's in the maybe trust for me. The only reliever in the don't trust right now is Mike Baumann. Had a good outing to finish off the win Saturday night against the Rays. Comes in, gives up a solo homer to Martin Maldonado, of all people, in the 8th inning of this one. He was good early in the season. Then he wasn't as good. Then he went to AAA. Now he's back. It's fine that the only guy in the don't trust category is the last guy in the bullpen. Mike Baumann is currently the last guy in the pen. The stuff's still solid. It's just too much in the middle of the plate right now. Hopefully he will clean that up a bit, at least be somewhat reliable as still the least reliable guy in the Orioles bullpen. But that's the bullpen trust rankings. Hopefully Kyle Gibson gives them some good innings tonight. Yennier Cano should be available. It would be pitching 3 straight days, but he's kind of barely pitched in the last 2 games when he's come in, so he should be available. And they should have most of the guys like Cionel Perez should be able to go back out there, and you'll have DL Hall, and you'll probably have Jorge Lopez. And so if Gibson give him a long start, they should be able to try and win a series tonight against the Astros. And I'll be back with you tomorrow recapping Game 2 between the Orioles and the Houston Astros, getting you any more injury updates, potentially on Aaron Hicks and Felix Bautista. And we'll have a little update on what the Rays did in Game 1 against the Angels. But that's all coming up on tomorrow's episode. Until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.